Hello, hello.
Hi.
Welcome to Couples Pursuit. Hello, my name is Vincent
And I'm Valerie
Woodard. And on this episode of Couples Pursuit,
we're going to talk about the anger assessment.
mm-hmm.
Over the last couple of weeks, we've been thinking about and talking about communication, and we have talked about 5 love languages, 5 types of communication, 4 styles of communication, and also we've talked about your apology language.
Mm-hmm.
What is that? And tonight we're going to talk about the anger assessment. And that's going to be pretty interesting.
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting. Yeah. And I think it's with all this communication that we're doing now, hopefully you're speaking more with your spouse about some things you might not have felt comfortable with talking about in the past because you didn't want to have an argument, you didn't want to go through a miscommunication and all that good stuff, but you still decided, hey, I want to make this marriage to work. I want to do the best that I could possibly do to just have better connection with my spouse. So now, you did the 5 types of communication. Was it 5?
It's
5 types of communication.
5 types.
Then you have the 5 styles of communication, and then we talked about the love language and how you give, love and how you like to receive love, all that good stuff. So now we can get to a part where sometimes we're not perfect. So we can sometimes say things that get misunderstood by our spouse. Sometimes we can say things out of our flesh, knowing that it probably wasn't the right thing to say, and we said it anyway. And now we're at a point where we have to apologize. Sometimes we don't apologize. So that we want to talk about the top that can happen is anger. Anger can come up, and it can be a callous. It can be something that can raise its nasty head up in your marriage. If it doesn't goes checked, if it goes
unchecked,
yes. Because anger by itself, is not a bad thing. God gave us so many emotions. And we had to use anger when we had to go to war. We had to use anger. God uses anger because He doesn't like the unrighteous. He addresses us not to use anger as it leads to bitterness, because anger unchecked can lead to bitterness, and bitterness, what we're finding out, that can lead to sin. And so when that leads to sin, God doesn't like that, and it's not good for you. It's not good for your marriage.
Right. We're told to be angry and sin not, so that then, validates what you just said. It's okay to be angry because some things happen that bring up anger. If someone has hurt you or a loved one, something's been done to you that's wrong, it is natural to feel anger, but it's what we do with the anger that determines how settled and mature we are, and whether we are led by our emotions or by our intellect or by our spirit, as we choose to be. It's interesting because one of the things that I like to say is that emotions are indicators, not instructions. And what I mean by that is your emotions tell you where you're sitting. It tells you where you're positioned in your mind, in your heart, in your spirit. And then it's up to us to take the time to investigate those feelings. Like, why am I feeling this way? I know that I'm angry or I'm sad or I'm scared or I'm ashamed or whatever the emotion is, but why do I feel that way?
That's right.
And sometimes instead of assessing how we feel, we can just push that feeling off on whatever, person is present in that situation. And we use the excuse, well, I was just upset. Well, it's obvious that you were upset, but being upset doesn't give us the right to harm or disrespect or unload on someone else.
Exactly right. I put the definition of what I found a common definition of anger. And it says it's a strong feeling of annoyance, displeasure, or hostility. And that's simple. What I think that anger can be used for good, like I said, in cases where your family's been attacked. When people are trying to take your life, it's so many things that we can use that for. But then most time it's used when you're facing danger, when you're facing a place where your life is being threatened, but we also bring that same anger into our relationships. Now we shouldn't feel danger in our relationship. If it is, we're talking about physical abuse, emotional abuse, talking about that's a subject we can touch on. But I'm talking about the fact that you just got upset because she loaded the dishwasher wrong. That's not danger.
Right.
But we use that same anger sometimes, and when expressed out with our spouse and express your displeasure, express your annoyance to it, your frustration with it.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes anger and frustration, we use them like they're the same thing, and they're not. They're not. We are trying to give you tools and advice and all those things to know how to separate what happens when you actually feel unhappy with your spouse. Because there are some times where you might she did load the dishwasher.
According to you.
According to you. That's the right way to go.
No. According to you, she loaded the dishwasher wrong, and but we're joking. But yes. the thing of it is for some people, anger it becomes their main emotion.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And that tells you that there's something going on underneath the surface that's unchecked.
That's right.
If each situation you encounter brings up anger, doesn't mean that it's not okay to have displeasure or dislike about a situation or a thing if something doesn't go your way. You may not like it, but not liking it and throwing a fit about not liking it are two different things. A picture comes to mind. The parent on the soccer or football field whose child is not doing as well as they would like them to do, or the coach is not coaching the way the parent would like them to coach. And they jump out there and jump up and down and scream and yell and call names and antagonize the coach or coach the kid along with the coach. And it's like, you're out of control. If you're screaming and you're yelling and you're displaying the type of behavior that is not acceptable for your child, right? In front of your child. That gone unchecked can be a problem. And so let's switch over to relationship and let's magnify it a bit. We joked about the dishwasher, but let's say there's something the wife doesn't like about the way the husband does whatever, right? Why do you always park so close to my car? It makes it hard for me to get in when I go out. Okay. All right, that might be an issue, but should she yell and scream at him about that? Should she not speak to him when she comes to the house because you did it again and I know I told you don't park so close to my car. It's a problem, et cetera, et cetera. It might be deeper than just what's going on with the car.
Exactly right. And in the title I said, how to handle your anger, even when you feel like you can't help yourself. I think a lot of times we use that as an excuse to why we lash out, why we act out. Because she just made me, or he just made me, or they shouldn't have done that. They know better. They knew better. And your emotions and your blood gets to running, and your temperature and your eyes dilate and all those things, and you're like, I just, and no, it's no. My wife told me a long time ago that I shouldn't receive the same kind of angst that someone would get if they try to break in our house. Like if someone, like I wouldn't act this way towards her. If I wouldn't act this way to somebody else, I shouldn't act this way towards her.
Yeah. My question is why are you so angry that X, Y, and Z? It made it seem like, if I had done something wrong, if I have done something to upset you, why does it warrant the level of anger?
Yes.
Like the turn up and won't turn down kind of anger.
Yes.
That is what we're really addressing today. That it's like when you say somebody push my button, you push a button and you turn it to the highest volume, right? And it's like there's no stopping that.
Yeah.
I'm not going to stop yelling or talking or whatever it is until I feel better. I need to push this anger out. And when I'm done doing that, then I'll be okay. And you might feel okay. But then what damage have you done to your relationship, to your household, to the trust, the security and the stability?
The aftermath,
Yeah.
Like now, you just unleashed your fury, and now your spouse is feeling like, wow, he really didn't like me for a second there, or doesn't like me. Might still feel that way. And why are we getting to a point where you can say you love me, but then act like you can't stand me, but then come back and say that I love you.
Yeah.
But I love you, but I just my job.
You just made me mad.
Yeah,
I'm just upset. We're responsible for our own emotions, and we're responsible for our own actions. So it's not enough to say or to continue to say, well, I'm sorry, I was just mad. No, at some point you have to check your feelings. And there are, literally a million different reasons that we can give for being mad. Let's say someone just, did something or said something you didn't like. And then let's say someone betrayed you or mistreated you, lied to you, et cetera, et cetera. Those are two different situations.
That's right.
But even in those two situations, we are still responsible for how we respond to a situation. We can't control what someone else has done, but we can control how we respond to it. And so when we don't do that, and we allow ourselves to unleash on someone else, it shows a lack of self-control.
That's right.
It also shows a lack of respect and maturity. And in many cases, sometimes wisdom, and it doesn't always contain itself to your household and your relationship. Sometimes it pours over into your job. So if you're the person who is going to go off and slap stuff around the office or, yell at your boss or your coworker, then that's going to create problems for you as well.
That's right. There's many studies done about anger, and a lot of it kind of maybe says that well, it's okay to get angry. I'm not really going to say nobody should never get angry. What I do want to caution you with though is the fact that you're getting so angry that you have to restrain yourself from your loved one. You have to get that under control. You shouldn't get. I would say you shouldn't get angry, because sometimes you have to deal with the root of the issue, like why? Because she or he done something. What about that gets you so angry that you have to restrain yourself? You have to remove yourself from a situation. Now I know there's plenty of things that you say, well, I just can't help myself. That's what we're talking about here. But I think the goal is to actually to deal with the root issue of why getting that angry is an option. Like
why is it your go-to?
Yeah. Why is it? It's like, okay, I got angry, but I'm sorry, and I'm not going to ever do it again. But then you never really dealt with the root issue why you got so angry. So whenever it happens again, maybe in another way, it's an option to get angry. That's what I want to caution against.
Yeah. And what if you don't know? I tend to think that sometimes underneath anger is fear of some sort. It's fear that I'm going to be out of control, that things are out of control, that something is going to happen to me that I don't want. Fear that I'm going to be ashamed or guilty or discovered or mistreated or disrespected. And the response, instead of saying, this makes me feel this way. I feel this way because it reminds me of a time before when whatever, XYZ happened, and the result, was devastating to me. So rather than say all of that, find all of that, dig into all of that, it's quicker to just, just let it all out. And then you have to deal with the fallout. And what I want to share is that anger is compared to a fire. We can set things ablaze with what we say. Wars are started wars and rumors of war are started from anger. Right now in this country, we're going through things where, people are at war, and they can have their opinions or difference of opinions about why they're at war, now in the present and in the past. But anger, unchecked, can cause so many problems. And associated with anger is sometimes pride.
Mm-hmm.
And pride comes before the fall. And a haughty spirit or a high spirit or thinking high of yourself before the destruction. And so if you feel like you are above your mate or your feelings matter more than your mate, then it's very possible that you have a problem with anger or you have a problem with pride. Now, it may or may not be intentional, because sometimes people don't discover they have an issue until it's highlighted, until someone says, hey, what? What's going on with you?
Exactly right.
What you mean? I was just upset. I just need to cool off. Right. Maybe you need to cool off, but you also need to check that behavior.
Yeah, exactly. The Bible speaks to that. It's Ephesians 4:26-27. It says, "Be angry, but do not sin. Do not let the sun go down on your anger, and give no opportunity to the devil." Because he likes to sneak in at nighttime. He comes
but to steal, kill, and destroy, and he can do that with your anger.
Yeah, day, night. Really, the adversary has no timetable. But when you let anger just settle, in terms of resentment turns to bitterness. And in Hebrews 12:15, it says, "See that no one fails to obtain the grace of God, that no root of bitterness springs up and causes trouble, and it may become defiled." So the root of bitterness is, like my wife says, unchecked anger. When you just let it fester, you actually take care of that thing. You feed it, You
grow it, right?
Like a chia pet,
Yeah, you ever been mad with someone, and instead of, forgiving them, even when they come to you for forgiveness, you want to rehearse and relive what happened. No, but you did such and such and such. And so you hold on to it. And so you feed that thing. And it does begin to grow. But we're also cautioned to be slow to speak. Slow to anger, to wrath, and quick to hear.
Yes.
Right? So we are supposed to communicate with one another and listen to one another for the purpose of understanding, to find out what is the issue. Does the person really even mean to offend you?
Yes.
If they do, and if they continue, then that's something that you deal with. But you cannot fight fire with fire. You just get a bigger fire. You just get a bigger fire. And if you need to separate yourself from someone who is angering you, then that's one thing to talk about. When I say separate yourself, I mean, take the time to take a breather, deal with whatever has happened, and then with maturity and wisdom, come back and talk about it. Talk about the issue, not just the anger.
Yes. And that was a good question. There's some question. A question came up, said, how do you control anger outbursts?
Well, I think that would, if I had to answer that, I would go back to emotions are indicators, not instructions. It's like, why? And we need to ask ourselves, not automatically, he made me mad, she made me mad, this made me mad. Nothing can make you do anything.
Yeah.
It may bring up emotion in you, but what is the root of that emotion? What is it connected to? Figure that out. Before you open your mouth to speak, think about, now, am I really angry with this person? Or am I hurt? Do I feel confused? Do I feel betrayed? What is the feeling behind what anger disguises?
Yes. And it's so much necessary to get your emotion across to that person, then to get your actual point. Like, the thing that actually made me sad, frustrated, whatever that issue was, let's get clarity on that, as opposed to, I just want that person to feel what I'm feeling inside right now. Because, like my wife said a while ago, fire just makes a bigger fire. Yeah. And some signs said, look for the warning signs, and also, as you stated earlier, buy yourself some time. Now, I used to leave the house after my anger outburst. That's not the same thing. I would just leave because I didn't want to be, around. I knew it would tick her off when I left, and I left. And it's not so much I was buying myself time. I was just like, I said what I had to say, so I'm out of here. I'm done. I let her deal with that. I wasn't going to get my point across. So the point that I knew I would get across is that if I left, she'll be, upset. She'll be mad, and I ain't got to sit here and keep arguing about the argument or whatever. And that's not the same thing. Buying yourself some time is when you know that I need to calm down. And if we can't do it in that moment, if you can't tell your spouse, hey, I just need a second, I need a minute, or you have to go take a walk and count to 10, 20, 100, whatever, then come back. Because I want you to leave this episode knowing that it has to be checked. It has to be addressed. It cannot linger. No, we have not always been perfect. No, we can't. We did let the sun go down. Sometimes.
Too many times.
But I think why we find ourselves here today is that we took on the challenge to find out what was going on. Why did I get so angry? Why that outburst happened? And it took a while to get to this point, y'all. But I'm encouraging you, there is help. There is hope. It can happen in your marriage. It does take two people, but the work is in you. The work is in one, that person.
Yeah. And I want to share also, sometimes, we say, I try not to get upset. I try not to, lash out or whatever, but he or she pushes my buttons. And I want to say that we're responsible for our own buttons. If there are buttons to be pushed, we are the ones who are supposed to be in control of that, right? Because everyone has emotions. Everyone has feelings. Everyone has a right to the expression of their feelings. And if there's a difference between someone saying something to you intentionally to harm you or to hurt your feelings or to bring about a reaction. And if that's happening, then you know what you're dealing with or what type of person you're dealing with, and you address that. But when there are situations where someone might say or do something you don't like and you feel justified in retaliating or in expressing your anger in an equal or greater manner, that does not help.
No.
we are owed respect from one another, and when we don't get that, we can express how we feel about that.
Amen.
That's where communication comes in.
Well, that's so great that you went there, because our next question, it says how to communicate frustration or the feeling of frustration in a relationship. How do you communicate that when you know it could lead to the other person getting upset or maybe angry?
Wow. I think sometimes it depends on the demeanor of your spouse or your mate. I think it's very important that when we talk about how we feel, that you talk about how we talk about how we feel, and not you such and such and you this and you, because it is seen as an attack. More than likely, if a person has an issue with anger, what you don't want to do is this, right? Because that gives them cause to just puff up and get defensive and put up their walls, and then they're ready to fight because their first response is to fight.
Yes.
Right? And that fight can be with their words, it can be their body language, it can be the absence of their presence, it could be throwing jabs, verbal jabs, it could be any of those things. So when you are in a relationship and you're frustrated, how to express that frustration is to say how it causes you to feel. Do you know when such and such happens? I feel. Yeah. Those I statements are very important. Yeah.
We learned that in the apology language. How we start with how you're feeling, not based on anything else. It could be other things could influence it. Yes, we're being real, but we're taking inventory of ourselves. Like you said, we look inward.
We are the only thing we can control.
That's good.
Just us. And that may or may not net you the result that you want, but it is wise to talk about how you feel rather than talking about how someone else makes you feel.
Yeah.
Or what someone else does.
Oh, you always do.
Yeah, you always or you never.
Man, that was that was so much fire putting on fire on top of fire. Well, you always do this, and we always go here. I'm like, whoa. And we're trying to backtrack, but like we don't always do that, and I don't always, I'm trying to defend just a statement that I said out of frustration. But man, that's good, baby. That's good. That another question that says, how to handle a spouse with rage issues.
Now, if we're talking about rage, this is anger out of control. This might be the person who throws things, who punches the wall, who, screams, who doesn't care who's listening. It's like, it's the tantrum. It's an adult tantrum. It's an adult tantrum. And this is a tricky one because sometimes that same person may have a tendency to be violent. That behavior is violent. It's emotionally violent to scream and throw things and, punch the wall beside your face or, throw something in or around. That behavior is definitely destructive, and it is violent, and it is abusive. And so if you're dealing with someone like that, or someone who will put their hands on you or punish you in some type of way for expressing the way you feel, that is a much, much deeper issue. And I want to make it really clear that we do not condone physical violence, emotional violence, verbal violence. And it would be most wise to seek professional help. If a person does have rage, if you are able to, at a moment that there is no disagreement, right, have a conversation and approach it with tact and care and prayer. Sometimes there's not going to be anything that you can do about how that other person is. What you have to do is use wisdom and keep yourself, and if there are children involved, keep yourself and your children safe.
You might have to remove
from
yourself.
That damaging behavior. You may have to remove yourself from that situation.
And your children. I left a link below, and because like I said, it was physical abuse, it was even if it's emotional abuse, gone on and just threatening your sanctity. It's threatening your peace. You might have to remove yourself.
The emotional well-being of yourself and your family is important. Studies show that babies, infants who don't speak, who are it's a study called ACEs, Adverse Childhood Experiences. If you're interested, you can Google that. But how children who experience violence and dysfunction in the home, how it affects their bodies.
Wow.
It's amazing what we don't see that occurs when violence is present, whether that's emotional, physical, or verbal.
Yeah, so you find yourself in a situation like that. Like I said, that's a much deeper conversation, but I left a link below onto the National Domestic Violence hotline, and please feel free to use that link right there. So, babe, this was a great conversation. I hope it helps someone.
I hope so too.
It's a quiz. We love these quizzes, y'all, and we encourage you to take it because you could talk about it or listen to us talk about it, but it's one thing when you actually see yourself in the mirror, and you actually take inventory of yourself. So these quizzes are a great way to do that, especially when you take it with your spouse or your loved one. I think it's just like, wow, I didn't know that about you. I didn't know that I kind of portrayed myself that way. So it's an anger assessment quiz, believe it or not, that you can take. That link is also in the description. And babe, I took the quiz. Did you take it?
I did. I did.
So I'm gonna put a disclaimer on mine.
Okay.
I answer truthfully. I try to answer from where I'm at right now, not from where I used to be.
Where you used to be. Okay.
But even with that, I was so disappointed.
Really?
Yeah, disappointed. Yeah. My quiz said.
Okay.
The result that I got, he asked a whole bunch of questions.
Okay.
I think I left some of them up here. They asked your signs, how you overcome shame, managing anger, how you manage conflict, all that good stuff like that. So it told me at the end of this quiz that it says you're doing well,
right,
but can improve.
That's the only sentence you had?
That's all I got. Well, that's all. It's an access your results, and it tells you that.
Okay, so what is that?
So, it tells you action steps you would benefit from better understanding the distinction between good anger and bad anger. And your results are now. This is true. This is true because I'm a calm teddy bear guy, but sometimes I get a little. I'm like, I don't really understand why they're doing this right here, and I don't really. Y'all don't really see it. My wife doesn't even really see it that much. Your results are indicative of someone who likely handles your anger well in many situations. But there are still times when your anger is handling you. Recognize the areas where you are doing well in handling your anger, but also be cautious that your anger is not getting out of hand in other ways.
That's a little more explanatory. Do
you
agree with that, or you feel like I don't know?
I think I answer honestly in the quiz, and I urge you to do the same. I think I feel a lot of issues, but I don't express them.
Right.
And I think that's the thing sometimes, and I just, when they asked me the question, how do you feel? He didn't say, what would you do sometimes.
What would you do?
Like I always ask,
yeah.
And so that's what I did. So I think it's good. I think it's pretty. I think it's there. I wanted to say, that I was great. I was normal. You are the poster child of good behavior.
Well, what I would like to say is that I think you are doing well, and I think also, like many of us, the word says, "As a man thinketh in his heart, so is he." Right? And so, if it asks you the questions, how do you feel? How are you thinking or processing about the situation? The good thing is that you don't do what you think.
That's right.
You don't always do what you think anymore. Because before, you did whatever you felt like, right?
Yep.
Whatever came up, came out.
Yes, ma'am. Yep.
And you're not that person anymore.
Thank God.
And so it just means that you're continuing the same. So I would say that is a good response. Now, I'll tell you what mine says.
What does yours say?
And you tell me if you agree.
Okay.
I answered my questions about different, I think 12 different scenarios. It's like, what would you do? And you have 3 responses. And it says, Valerie knows how to handle her anger. These results are indicative of someone who generally has a good handle on their anger. They are likely aware of what makes them angry and tend to be intentional in processing their feelings of anger. They are not likely to experience many difficulties from anger-related issues in their personal or professional life. What would you say?
You got to teach this pedal right there. You got the A. She got the A plus. I think that's good. I think it's exactly you've always been the level-headed one in our relationship. I thank God for that, because if we both were
hothead,
we would not.
Well, let's be clear. There were times when I did let my anger go. And we're not going to talk about that tonight.
What happens when your
what happens when she gets
wife
tired?
Goes wild. She's on you. Just
but you know
Babe
what?
Bucks back.
Babe bucks back. But even in that, I realized that even when provoked, I'm still responsible for my response, and I never felt good about the times when I was like, and you know what? Yeah.
Hey, this is so good. So I hope you got something out of this episode.
Yes. Go to the website, 5lovelanguages.com, the number 5. You can take the love language test. You can take the apology assessment. You can take the anger assessment. Learn something about yourself and about your spouse. That's
right. And for the people on our podcast and our radio show, the National Domestic Violence Hotline is simply thehotline.org.
THEHOTLINE.org.
That's right. And the all the quizzes, the apologies, the 5 love language quiz, the apology quiz, the anger assessment quiz, all that, like my wife said, can be found at the number 5 love languages with the s.com. And you just search for quizzes, and there's so much other good information up there. So another great episode, baby.
Yeah.
I think this really it really helped me to be able to just to put words to things that I felt, things that I try to understand. Plus, to dig a little deeper when you're dealing with an anger yourself, or with a spouse that gets angry, and you're like, whoa, what? You find yourself constantly backpedaling because you really just don't know how to handle it. Either or, coming or going. So we're going to keep digging into this communication camp, as my wife say. I really like that. We're going to talk more and more about how communication and styles and ways affect your relationship, because the key to connection is communication. When you learn how to connect, it's something that's spiritual. It's something that happens when two people are aligned, and you could change the world. And our goal here at Couples in Pursuit is to do that. Our goal is here to provide, tools to compile, to communicate, to give you things that will help you in your marriage, so that you can, thrive, have a successful one. And even you really can't say successful while it's going, but you can doggone try.
Well, you can have successes along the way, but you want to get to the end intact. You want to get to the end of your life, still loving and respecting and honoring one another, still communicating, still sharing. And remember, anger is an enemy to communication.
That's right. When it's left unchecked, when you don't handle the issues, when you don't take inventory of yourself and how and recognize how it does affect your relationship. Just because you are able to get past it, get over it, move on to the next, it doesn't mean it didn't affect it. It doesn't mean it didn't leave a scar, it didn't leave a wound.
It didn't put another brick on the wall, between you. And remember to take responsibility, even if your partner doesn't challenge you, because when we talk about the 4 styles of communication, your partner might be a passive person, and they may not confront you, about the way that you handle yourself, or vice versa. Maybe you're that person. Just because they don't say anything doesn't mean it doesn't affect them.
That's right.
So don't take advantage of your spouse by unloading your anger on them.
Yes, you could be the assertive one, or you could be the aggressive one.
Right.
In a relationship, and you love to talk, you love to express yourself, and sometimes you might not even really, they're not going to say nothing, so I'm just going to keep talking, and you're not really dealing with the fact that, what do you have to say? I want to know what's on your mind. Can you tell me
they are feeling, even if they're not saying how they feel?
Amen. So stick with us.
Yes.
And we're just going to keep doing topics just like these.
Yes, and until next time, may the Lord bless you and keep you. Make his face shine upon you and be gracious to you. Peace.
Amen.
Yeah.
Until next time. Bye.